Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast. I'm Miguel and this is what I learned today. Today, we're going to dive into a study that shook the world of psychology and continues to spark discussions about human nature. We are talking about the Milgram experiment, a controversial investigation into how far people will go to obey authority, even when it conflicts with their personal values. Let's begin. In the early 1960s, Stanley Milgram, a psychologist at Yale University, began a series of experiments that would become infamous. He wanted to understand why people obey authority figures, even when those orders lead to harm. His question stemmed from the Holocaust, where individuals like Adolf Eichmann claimed that they were just following orders while committing atrocities. Could ordinary people act similarly? The experiment was simple yet striking. Volunteers were told they were participating in a learning study. They were assigned the role of a teacher, while an actor unknown to them took the role of a learner. The teacher was instructed to administer electric shocks to the learner whenever they made a mistake, which with each error, the voltage increased. The shocks weren't real, but the participants believed they were. The learner, pretending to be in pain, would cry and eventually fall silent as the shocks escalated. Despite visible distress, the authority figure, the experimenter, encouraged participants to continue, using phrases like, "The experiment requires you continue." The findings were shocking. 65% of participants delivered the maximum shock level, despite believing they were causing immense harm. These results suggested that ordinary people could carry out harmful actions under the influence of authority. So, why did so many people comply? Milgram identifies several factors. First, physical presence of authority. He believed that the close proximity to the participant made their instructions harder to ignore. When the authority figure was present in the same room, participants were significantly more likely to comply. Conducting the study at Yale University, a reputable institution, gave participants a sense of trust in the experiment's safety and legitimacy. The association with a respected environment enhanced their willingness to obey. The gradual increase in shock levels created a slippery slope effect. Starting with a minor action made it psychologically easier for participants to justify continuing to more severe actions. Participants believed the authority figure was accountable for the outcomes, not themselves. This shift in perceived responsibility reduced their moral hesitation. Some participants felt that the experiment had a worthwhile objective, such as advancing science. This belief made it easier for them to rationalize their actions. Being alone with the authority figure left participants with fewer social cues or allies to oppose the orders. In contrast, when other participants openly refused to comply, obedience levels dropped dramatically. Later studies added even more nuance. Researchers discovered that people's willingness to obey depends on how much they identify with the authority figure or align with the task's goal. Conversely, observing others disobey significantly weakened compliance. Later studies added more nuance, and researchers found that obedience wasn't automatic. People were more likely to comply if they identified with the authority figure or believed in the task's purpose. Conversely, the presence of others who refused to obey significantly decreased compliance. While groundbreaking, the experiment faced several ethical criticism. Participants experienced emotional distress, believing they had harmed another person. Critics also highlighted the deceptive nature of the study and the lack of proper debriefing for many participants. In response, ethical guidelines for psychological research became stricter. Today, such an experiment would be considered unacceptable. Despite ethical concerns, the experiment had been replicated many times, often with similar results. Modern versions use safeguards, such as stopping at lower shock levels. These replications confirm that the tendency to obey authority remains a powerful force, even today. Interestingly, some participants in Milgram's original study guessed the shocks were fake, which raised questions about the validity of the results. Yet, the core idea that people are influenced by authority remains widely accepted. What does this mean? The Milgram experiment forces us to confront uncomfortable truths. How do we balance obedience with moral responsibility? How do situational pressures shape our actions? These questions remain relevant in workplaces, schools, and society at large. Imagine a world where more people question harmful orders and stand up for their values. What would it take to create that world? Perhaps awareness is the first step. By understanding studies like Milgram's, we can better recognize and resist undue influence. So to summarize, the Milgram experiment revealed how authority can lead ordinary people to commit harmful acts. Factors like trust, authority presence, and social context influence obedience. The study's ethical issues reshaped how psychological research is conducted, and even today, the findings challenging us to reflect on how our own behavior and choices. Guys, thank you for joining me through this podcast. I thought it was an interesting one. I'd like you to do 4 things before you go. Like the podcast, subscribe if you haven't, share with a friend, and leave a comment down below to engage. Hey guys, I hope you learned something. I'm Mikel, and this is what I learned today. Bye.